Tokusatsu is a fantastic genre, and my personal guilty pleasure. But what is a tokusatsu, I hear you ask? Well, you just sit tight while I change the entire setup of this series just to gush about the genre. Thank you. Thank you. Alright, quiet down. Stop it. Shh. Thank you. Now, you all know what a tokusatsu is, even if you haven't heard the genre name. You don't believe me? Godzilla. You know Godzilla. The old Japanese Godzilla films? Those are tokusatsu. Essentially, people beating on each other in rubber suits in a bunch of sets that can be destroyed rather easily just for effect. AKA kaiju movies. Not kaijin, kaiju. There's a difference. Kaijin is just a mysterious person or monster, and kaiju are giant monsters. You all know what a kaiju is. Uh, but yeah, essentially knocking over the big sets to look like little cities, like Little Japan or whatever. You know, in the rubber monster suit. That's tokusatsu, and they're fantastic. This is gonna be one video of at least three. This one being a general tokusatsu video, and the other two focusing on the two main tokusatsu shows that I watch, being Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. Oh, thank you. Now, tokusatsu is a literally... Ugh, I don't know words. As a literary term, tokusatsu just refers to its special effects. So, you know, a lot of jump cuts, a lot of zooming in. I'm talking about Showa era stuff. You know, that's a lot of more primitive stuff they had in like the 70s and 80s. That was the shit they had to deal with. Technically, the genre started in the 50s with Godzilla, but it has roots dating all the way back into Japanese theater, referred to as kabuki and bunraku, which is where the special effects came from. Bunraku is still used in tokusatsu to this day, as it focuses a lot on puppetry. You can see things like this in Super Sentai shows like Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger with Good Striker, and even in Zenkaiju with Sechan. Who are those characters, if you don't know? Don't fucking worry about it. You can look it up. Or I'll put him on the screen behind me. I like Sechan. He's cute. He's a little robot bird. They use it sometimes in Kamen Rider as well. But the last time I saw like an actual puppet character, like a puppet type character in that show, I forget his fucking name. He's a little eyeball guy from Kamen Rider Ghost. At least I think he's from Kamen Rider Ghost. Yeah. And, you know, if it counts, you know, sometimes there's a driver, like the belts, that can talk. Like the belt in Kamen Rider Drive. That's got an entire person's soul in it. And the demon's driver in Kamen Rider Revice, which is possessed by a demon. You know, those could be considered bunraku. Since it's kind of being puppeted, but it's just an item, I say you can get away with it because that's what they do with Good Striker as well. They're just holding it, but at an angle that the camera can't really see your hand, or it doesn't look like you're just bouncing it around while you talk. You know how when you're playing with toys and your guy's talking and you bounce your hand up and down? Like that. That's essentially what they're doing. That's the type of puppetry that's going on. Except the belts don't necessarily do that. I think there was a scene in Revice where the guy was fighting with the driver, because the driver's like, "Yes, I'm a demon, and I'm going to take your life," and he was like, "What the fuck? No!" Stuff like that. That's bunraku. Uh, yeah, that's it happens in both shows, and I'm sure it takes place in a lot of others. I mainly just watch Sentai and Rider, because that's what got me started with Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. It's taken a lot more seriously in Kamen Rider, though. If the show itself takes itself seriously, it's gonna be taken more seriously. Um, there's definitely still goofy moments in Kamen Rider, but they tend to take themselves pretty seriously. Um, but no matter what the tokusatsu show is, you can bet that 11 times out of 10, the common person, especially in the US, will call it fucking Power Rangers. Super Sentai, Power Rangers. Kamen Rider, Bug Power Rangers, if it's Showa era. Unless, you're referring to Heisei or Reiwa Kamen Rider, in which case they call it Ripoff Power Rangers. Just kidding, they call it all Ripoff Power Rangers. Because people, especially in the US, are stupid. And they think everything that they see here started here. Even if Power Rangers was an adaptation, a shitty adaptation, fight me, uh, of a show from the 80s. What, teenagers with attitude? No, these are young adults who were pretty mild mannered and chill, with ties to prehistoric royalty. They're just fighting a menace because that's what they were there to do. You know, that's that's what happens when Haim Saban gets his grubby little mitts on things. And he did it a few times with varying degrees of success. Just about everybody knows Power Rangers. Not everybody knows VR Troopers. And hopefully, very few people know Saban's Masked Rider. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about those later. Fuck you, Saban. Anyway, enough bitching about this old man who likes to ruin good shows with his fucking nonsense. There's two other videos planned for that, believe me. But there's plenty of great tokusatsu shows. There is no such thing as a bad tokusatsu. Power Rangers isn't a tokusatsu. I don't care what you say. It's just an adaptation of it. You just change the premise, okay? It doesn't count. You fucked up with it too much. You fucked with it too much, okay? That's the difference. But there's great shows. Great shows out there. And I highly encourage you to look them up. I'll list a few. Things like Ultraman, which I believe is the biggest tokusatsu in Japan. It's one of the big three. The other two being Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. There is Kikaider, which is well known in Hawaii. Uchu Keiji, or Space Sheriff, or known to some as VR Troopers. One of them, anyway. And even the newly popular Spider-Man, who is known almost entirely in the Western world as a meme. Because that show is fucking nuts. Like, you think it's all done for a meme and it's like an out of context thing. No. No. Spider-Man's fucking insane. For the sake of being insane. I love that show. Anyway, Tokusatsu is a very campy type of show. It's very... They focus on story, but it's a very run-of-the-mill type of superhero story, typically. People still go through, character development and everything, but it's still like your typical superhero stuff, not like your modern Marvel shit. I don't like Marvel movies. You don't need a quippy remark every time you fucking kick a guy in the face. That's what I like about Tokusatsu. Is if something needs to be taken seriously, they know how to take it seriously. A lot of people have gripes about, some of the ways that they talk, the head nodding thing. It's because you can't see their mouth move, so they have to be you got to kind of know who's talking, because sometimes, and by sometimes I mean all the fucking time now, there's a lot of people in suits, so you have to differentiate to see who's talking, especially early on when you're like, I don't know who's who. We're like episode 1. But I will say, uh, whether or not you can handle the fights or the way people talk, uh, the suits are fantastic. And they've always been fantastic. And I don't care what you say about that, that's an objective fact. They've always been fantastic. And, even over the years, it's been what? 70 years that tokusatsu's been around as a genre? 1954, almost 70 years. Something like that. I don't fucking know, dude. I'm too tired for math. Uh, it all started in the 50s with fucking Godzilla. And then it just kind of went off from there, especially in the 60s. That's when it really took off. The suits are fantastic, like I said, and they get better over time. They get more functional, they get more showy. You go from your classic Showa era stuff to the more polished Reiwa, or not Reiwa, the polished Heisei type shit, and then you get to the really fancy Reiwa stuff where they're just, it's an art piece now. You're just playing around. You're just showing off when it comes to Reiwa suits. God, I seriously look up some of the suits in newer Kamen Rider shows, or Super Sentai. I love Super Sentai. Go watch Zenkaiger. That one's good, and they have really good suits. God, the suits are so cool. One of my favorite Tokusatsu villains is the demon Gif from Kamen Rider Revice, simply because his design is awesome, and he is just a sinister antagonist. Like, he's horrifying. Like, he'll just kill you. He doesn't care. He just wants to eat people, and that's what he does. There's no, fighting him. At least for a while. There was a whole chunk of time where they would try to go up and fight him. They couldn't put a mark on him because he's just too goddamn powerful. But even though the suits are absolutely objectively fantastic, there's still a lot of gripes about CGI. Because the further in technology you go, the more there's going to be like potential for computer generated stuff. But the CGI isn't. It's not up to date with the more modern Western things. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is it doesn't need to be updated. The point was never to look like the next. It was never meant to look like a Marvel movie. It was never meant to be believable. It was meant to have a fun little story that you could lose yourself in. Somebody actually, I was doing some research on that. Somebody made a fantastic point on Reddit, of all places. It's better than Twitter. Fuck's sake. Essentially saying that, you're in the wrong place if you're trying to watch Tokusatsu for the pretty colors and CGI. Because that's not the fucking point. The point is the story. The CGI is just to do what you can't do without CGI. Where it's like, okay, if you need somebody to turn into a fucking shark, yes, that is a thing that happens. Go watch Revice. It was like the second or third episode. I think it was the second episode. If there are things that you physically can't do, that you can do much easier with just a little bit of CGI, then they'll use CGI. It's not meant to look believable. It's just made to get the job done, and that's what it does fantastically. And the person that I mentioned before on the subreddit regarding the CGI said, quote, "If you're watching Sentai, Kamen Rider, Ultraman or other toku shows for good CGI, then you're doing it wrong. End quote. I couldn't agree more, stranger on the internet. And with that advice, I'll leave you all with a bit of more advice. Shut the fuck up about Power Rangers and watch the superior shows that Spawn was ripping off. That's all. Good night, everybody. Good night.